around London, but although the traffic's bad, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? What I'm trying to say is our relationships with providers are around our need to be able to influence system conversations about reconfiguration and what impact it has on us as an ambulance service as we drive further, and system conversations about performance and the impact it has on us in terms of handover. The tendency has been that ambulances are kind of late to the party in those conversations.
Yeah.
So, penalties associated with there's no link in our contract between penalties for not responding in 8 minutes and the penalties applied to a hospital trust for delays in ambulance handover. So there's no connectivity. I don't think there would be if we were on an activity-based contract, to be fair. The other thing is, all of our transformation activity, all our transformation processes will be about our ability to reduce the number of patients we can convey to an A&E department and potentially reduce the number of ambulances we dispatch. Of course, our ability to reduce for us to stop sending people to hospital means that we need to invest in a different skill mix and a different set of behaviours at Gene with our paramedics. But the benefit lands in a reduction in A&E activity. So that's a very direct relationship between our costs and the provided costs of an A&E department. And I know there's a whole set of other arguments about how easy it would be to take costs out of an A&E department if you just took out 10 patients because the ambulance service is conveyed a bit less. But again, our ability in a block contract to demonstrate that and to kind of create that system conversation which would allow commissioners to move the money around in that way, bluntly, we just have no ability to do that. Because, as you can tell, it's just taken me 10 minutes to explain the nuts and bolts of our basic problem, and trying to do that with 23 CTGs and 10 providers who have no incentives to hear it is really hard.
Yeah. That's so there are some perverse incentives there for not collaborating.
Absolutely. So where's the system reward for not taking people to A&E?
Yeah. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. What forgive my ignorance, but what is the scale of data sharing between an ambulance trust and an acute hospital, if any at all?
I don't think it's an ignorant question at all. It's very patchy and quite limited.
Yeah.
So the kind of data sharing that we tend to get into is historical reporting around what's happened in terms of performance. So it's very kind of, operational A&E delivery board focused. What happened yesterday, how many A&E attendances were there by ambulance, how many NHS 111 calls were there. It's sort of historical operational system performance type data that we get into. We don't get into, I can't think of the right word, but kind of, decision-making transformation data really. We as an ambulance trust have just started to try and do that, to push some stuff out through the A&E delivery boards that says, the handover delays were this yesterday, but also, we conveyed this many people, we saw and treated this many people at scene and didn't send them, to just try and start that dialogue. But, you don't know because it is really, really limited. It doesn't happen. And yet the real irony is, ambulance services have some of the richest predictive modelling data in the whole system. It feels to me like a sort of gold mine that nobody's really thought about.
So why is that? Why is there such rich data available for you guys?
Why is there so much data available?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Why isn't? I didn't know. I wasn't aware that there was such great data collection in the ambulance sector.
Well, I guess by virtue of the fact that it's an emergency service, or technically an essential service, not an emergency. I keep getting corrected on that. Simply, it's that we have very rich detail about every call that we get, about every crew that we send, about every response time, about every outcome from where every vehicle vehicle went. We've got like a sort of like a picture, a live picture of system pressure at any given time. And the thing that so I suppose our data isn't necessarily particularly more rich than any single A&E department or anything, but the point is we have an overview across the system that nobody else has.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, 20 hospitals and community providers across Yorkshire and Humber all at once.
Yeah.
We know who's closed for what service every hour of every day of every week and where we have to divert to. So we have a kind of like a map, like a live map,
Yeah.
of what's going on at any given time. And the thing is, interestingly, we had a little kind of session with KPMG and McLaren, the F1 team of all people, the other day.
Oh wow.
Because we're interested in harnessing the power of what that would be like if you could turn it into a predictive model.
Yeah.
And we are going right off contracting now, but the police apparently do a bit of that, and it's kind of like air traffic control data. What can you do with it, and what can you use to predict with it, and how useful would that be to any other provider in the system? In theory, we should be able to tell a hospital how much ambulance demand they can expect that day. You know what I mean? So you kind of get into some really interesting vision about what you could do to be more useful. But the short answer to your question is we don't do any of that.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, next question then. What are the specific individual behaviours that your current payment system drives?
It feels a little bit like going back in time, coming out of a PBR system and into a block. And obviously, I've changed organisations, so a lot of this might be cultural, it might be about history, it might be about ambulance services, it might be about a lot of things, but some of it's got to be about the block. So it kind of comes around as defensive, kind of, slightly sort of protectionist. It's kind of like the same as the history of before service line reporting. If you give somebody a budget, they don't manage like what they need in terms of expenditure against their income. They just manage to the budget. So they, do you know what I mean? They kind of, we just kind of protect that 186 million.
Yeah.
It's less transparent. It's less robust. It's less data driven. It's less informed. So people just go, I've got 186, therefore I need 186, and don't ask me any questions about what I'm doing with it, sort of thing. That sounds like I've painted that very black, but I'm exaggerating to make the point.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense.
And I suppose on the other side, you get some sort of old school suspicion from commissioners about what it is that YAV is doing with its block contract and the funding that it's got. So, part of the change that I was trying to bring about in supporting the contract negotiation this winter just gone was being really transparent about what we were and weren't doing with the money and really laying it out. And having spent hours and hours and hours doing that and writing lots and lots of detailed letters about it, I was really disappointed to get accidentally copied into a thread of emails between commissioners in which there was a comment which was, I'm not paraphrasing, it was verbatim, they probably banked the money anyway, which was levelled at us. So that kind of whole horrible culture of, providers are just sitting around with their feet on the table reading magazines and they banked the money.
Yeah.
So not helpful heading into STPs really when we're all doing this together.
And what do you have any other examples of how being on block has impacted your role day to day? Like, yeah.
Well, just that it's an inordinate amount. Because we're in a block, it hasn't driven the development of the systems and processes and reporting mechanisms that a PBR-type contract drives, which means that the whole organisation is a bit behind the times in terms of the way that it considers performance information, the way that it triangulates performance with finance, with workforce, the way it understands service line reporting, income, expenditure, contribution and risk. you know,